Hey, Heather, thank you so much for joining me on Hope Stream today. I'm glad we got to meet each other actually a few weeks ago in person, which is always nice. So nice to not be on Zoom with somebody, right? To be
That
in
is
person.
fair. Thanks, Brenda, for having me on. And it was so delightful to meet you in person. We had a good weekend.
It was super nice. So Heather and I are part of a kind of a marketing group together, and it reminded me of the importance of in-person, human-to-human connection. It's
Yeah.
so important in these days when we're all just on screens and oh, I don't know. I kind of like, I guess because I went through so many years of business and being, going flying all over the world of meetings. And like that was just what you did. Like you would never even think about just having a relationship on the phone with someone.
Yeah,
So,
virtual is very new.
and I'm not sure
And
I'm
it's
such
good
a
in
fan.
some ways, and it's not good in some ways.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you have a podcast, Pivot Parenting. So Heather has an awesome podcast. And so, like me, she spends a lot of time with a microphone in front of her face,
Yes.
talking to people on a screen. Have you ever done an in-person podcast, like where you're sitting in those cool chairs and they have the mics
I
hanging out?
have. I
You
was
have?
guesting on my coach's, Carrie Marshall, her podcast, and she records in the studio. And so I went to her studio, which was so fun.
That looks super cool. I've never done that.
Yeah,
It's
that's
so
that's
weird.
extra.
Yeah, that is I feel like that's the next level when I get to do one
Yes.
of those.
Yes, it's like the big shows that you see videos of.
I know. And then I have to actually have an outfit on because I won't be able to sit with
Yeah,
sweat bottoms.
exactly.
Oh, okay. Well, let's get into what we want to talk about. So I was telling you that I'm excited to have this conversation because I have never covered the topic of faith and religion and spirituality and what happens with all of that when our kids decide to maybe do something different. And
Yeah,
it's a part of life. Obviously, a lot of families deal with this, not just our families who have kids who struggle with substance use, but I think especially in our families, there's so much going on, and the kids end up going through so many different experiences, and that often leads them to reconsider a lot of things in their life, including what kind of soup they were stewed in growing up. And obviously, a lot of that has to do with our faith and our religion and what we believe and what we don't believe. And so I'm
absolutely.
thrilled to have you here to talk about this because it's such a unique topic. And I am so glad that we have somebody to like rumble around with it in because it's a lot.
It is a lot, and it's something that's so deeply ingrained in our hearts and minds and souls that it can really affect us in ways that we can't even articulate.
Yes. Because, and I was just recording a podcast where we talked about we just sort of assume when our kids are young, even before you have kids. So you envision this life, right? With your spouse or your partner, and then you have these beautiful kids, and then life is very rosy and there's lots of unicorns and it's amazing. And then
Yeah, well, the majority of stories end with, "And they lived happily ever after," so to speak, and that's like it yeah, we never arrive and get to vacation land.
no, we don't. We might have moments of it and glimpses of it, especially when they're young, right? And we're still in
Sure.
control for the most part. Eh, I say the most part because that's kind of the truth. But, I grew up in going to church every weekend. There was certainly an expectation that, even when I was a teenager and I would be maybe out at a friend's house and we were doing things we weren't supposed to do, I was in that pew at, I don't even know what time it was, 10 o'clock on Sunday morning, no
Yep.
matter what. And I kind of raised my kids thinking, doing the same thing. And then at some point that stopped. And it's kind of
Yeah.
heartbreaking because if that's part of your life, and it's not part of everybody's life. So some people listening are going to be like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I've never been in a church in my life. but I think the same principle applies that there are things that these expectations that you have that all of a sudden are not happening. And you're like, wait a minute, what
Yeah.
happened?
I've I've seen that politics and religion can often be very similar, where the family is very much one way, and if children try to break from that, or, like, socioeconomic or education-wise, when children break from that, it can be really hard for parents.
Yes. So with religion, spirituality, faith, um, when our kids make a different choice, whether that's overt or a little covert on the down low,
Uh-huh.
how do we wrap our brains around that? I mean, it's really it goes so deep. It's not like, oh well, our family is vegetarian and now you're not vegetarian, right? It's like this is very, very deep.
Yeah, and when we believe that it's deep and that it's determining, if our kids go to heaven or hell, it feels very intense,
Yes.
and I like to check in. I don't know if people are gonna like to hear this. I like to check in with my own faith. So just a little bit of background, I have 4 kids. 2 are adults and 2 are in high school, and my 2 adult children both don't want anything to do with the faith, the Christianity that they were brought up in.
Okay.
And much like you, every Sunday, I was on that pew,
Right.
and that's how I was raised, and that's how I raised my children, that on Sunday we go to church. And I love Jesus, I love prayer, I love the hymns, I love the blessings that worshiping brings to me personally, and a big piece of faith or worship is faith,
Yeah.
and the the divine that I know is very loving, all-knowing, and is never gonna snap his fingers and say, "Well, you know, I don't know what to do with you now because you ruined my plan." There's no way that the divine I know we can ruin the plan. And so when I look at my older kids who have decided to my oldest does not believe in God. My second says, he's agnostic, so you can't prove or disprove. And
Right.
he's very cerebral and very intelligent, and that just that fits his personality so well.
Yeah.
That really wounded me because I want all my kids to go to heaven, so to speak, and I wanna be with them forever, and I want to not have them suffer or be lonely or sad or upset. Um, and I think that a lot of Christian belief misses the mark or goes beyond the mark on what we were taught by Christ himself. And I think that maybe this is well intentioned or not well intentioned to try and manipulate or coerce us into staying with the herd.
Mm.
And so when we dissect what is culture and what is doctrine that Christ taught, we can get a lot of clarity on lifestyle choices that our kids might choose. And then the biggest point for me is having faith that God loves my child more perfectly than I do. Like, I love the
Mhm.
scripture about, if your kid asks for bread, you might give him a stone or you might give him bread, but I'm always gonna give him bread because I love
Mm.
him perfectly.
Okay.
And to remember that God loves my child better than my flawed person can.
Humanity. Yes.
Yeah, and having faith that God is not I've never known God to be punitive and demanding and punishing. I've always received so much grace, and I know that this is my experience and not everyone's experience.
Yeah.
But we have to really look as well at what we're being taught and the experiences that we're having with religious leadership and the filter or the lens or how that light has been skewed.
Right.
And if we wanna choose to believe that that's God acting through that leader or authority, or if that's partly them and maybe just a little part God or no part God, like, we really have to discern for ourselves what is goodness and what is perhaps coercion or manipulation.
Mhm. Wow, you said so many things there that I'm writing down frantically. I think the thing that really just stood out to me is when you talked about, like, we can't ruin the plan, which is
Yeah,
very comforting to know regardless of what you believe. I think a lot of parents are parents when their kids are struggling so much and you're seeing your kid in so much pain and doing things that are so harmful to themselves. Often, if you haven't had a higher power, you find one because you realize, oh, there has to be something bigger at play here, something bigger than what I can see here on earth. And so that idea of like, I can't ruin the plan. I can probably ruminate myself to death. I can make myself so worried. I can do all these things, but there's a bigger plan at play feels really good to me. Like that just somehow that really sunk in. And also when you talk about discerning, like what is actual, like earthly opinion and, things that have been just sort of invented and created and well, we do it this way versus what do we really know to be true? Such an important distinction. And I think that's hard to do, especially if you're a little crazy, like if you're so stressed and worried and you're trying to,
yeah.
oof,
It is really hard to do, especially depending on your relationship with the divine leading up to this.
yes,
Because not only can you not mess up God's plan, but your kid can't mess up God's plan.
right.
Even if they overdose and pass away, God's plan is still in place.
Yes.
And so literally, our brain likes to go to worst case scenario. That's why I throw that out there. There is no way, if we believe what the Bible teaches us, that we can mess up God's plan for us or our child.
Yeah.
Um,
I know it's
I
hard.
forgot what I was gonna say.
That's okay. I was gonna say I agree with that, and I also am not a person who has lost a child. So I think for me, it's easier to say that, right? Like, and even about
Yeah.
my son to say, you know, in the midst of it, if somebody would have said, oh, well, this is God's plan for Enzo to go through this hellish experience, I would have been like, what? No, I would have been
That
very
could feel
defensive.
offensive.
Yeah, and so I think that it takes a person obviously of great faith to be able to say that we can't ruin the plan, especially in light of horrible things happening. So how do you sort of wrestle with that? Like, how do we make sense of that if something really horrible has happened, like we lose a child, whether it's overdose or cancer, whatever it is?
Yeah. I think that as far as substances maybe that children are choosing, I think the whole point of our human journey is to practice agency and to become wise stewards and learn and grow and develop as a human. And we have to have agency in order to be able to do that. And so, I mean, we can't choose necessarily if we get cancer or not. I think most people would say not. But I don't mean to dismiss or diminish the pain that agency can bring, whether that's what our
Right.
child is choosing or what people are choosing to impose upon us.
Yeah.
Because everybody has their agency and for the most part, we run around harming one another with that agency. But I think when we can use grace or mercy along with justice, that there is a balance where the divine can walk us through and be with us in those hard moments, and Christ's atonement can justify, or in other words, supplement all of that pain for our benefit.
Mm,
So it's not fun, and I'm not saying that God's plan was for your kid to become an addict,
right.
but because of agency, we can choose to become addicts, and we can choose to get behind the wheel of a car when we shouldn't be driving, and we can choose all kinds of really awful things to do to ourselves and those around us, and that's painful.
It's so painful.
And also, that can be justified and healed, and there's still, no matter how badly we use our agency, none of it is beyond the scope of what can be repaired and put to right.
Mhm. That's good perspective to keep because I think it's easy to get really focused on the moment, even if that moment is a year or 2 years or 3 years, right? Like, it's very
Yeah.
easy to get lost in that moment and to forget that things can change and do change, always change, and that I talk sometimes, about worrying is worshiping the problem. And the more that we do that, the more we are basically saying to God, to your higher power, you can't handle this. I need to worry about it. I need to control this situation. And so that's a good perspective to keep. And
Well,
and
and
just
that's sorry, go ahead.
no, I was going to ask you something else. So go ahead on that.
Well, there's 2 things to kind of point out in what you're saying, and the first one is that it makes total sense when you're focused on the here and now. Because when we are so wrapped up in what's happening, our nervous system is engaged. So the fight, flight, freeze, fawn, shutting down, running around, putting out fires, that's our nervous system. And it is only right now.
Yes.
We cannot play the long game when we are in fight, flight, freeze, fawn.
Yeah.
It is very focused on right now, and so to be able to pray, to be able to meditate, to be able to ground ourselves, to calm ourselves enough that we can step out of right now and see that bigger picture is huge.
Yes.
And sometimes we can do that on our own, and sometimes we can't, and we need help, and
Yes.
that's not a problem. And then the piece where you were saying, "No, I gotta handle this. I don't know if God can handle this." So this is one of my favorite things to point out and to observe in the world around me and in myself, which is this nasty little cocktail that keeps us stuck. And it's a two-part cocktail. The first part is unhealed wounds, and the second part is ego.
Mm,
And so we can have an unhealed wound where I don't trust God because this is how God has been sold to me, or this is my experience with God. And so I don't trust that he loves my child or gives a flying crap about me or my family.
right.
That could be one example, right?
Right.
So you have that wound, and then you have this pride of, I'm not going to talk to him myself. I'm not going to work this out. I'm just going to do it myself.
Right.
And so we really inhibit our own growth and comfort because of that two-part cocktail of woundedness and pride.
And you're saying that's what really keeps us stuck.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to unstick yourself. That is why therapy and coaches and spiritual leaders that are safe, those are
Yes.
all really important to be able to see yourself clearly, to heal your wounds, to be able to connect with the divine, however you choose to see them, so that you can then relax and em let go of your ego
Mm,
and turn things over to God and feel supported.
yeah. It's so the first part of that cocktail, and I love kind of thinking about it in that way, the unhealed wounds are so I think that what I've seen is a lot of people use that as the reason to not lean in, but to lean away and to say,
And that's the
"Well,
ego.
yeah, like, you let my mom die from cancer.
Mhm.
You let my dad abuse me. You
Yep.
let my sister die in a car crash." Like, those are the things that can be a really big shield that we put up, like, and I think it's an emotional response and also ego to say, "Well,
Yeah.
can't count on you."
Yeah, we're
Right?
just trying to protect ourselves.
Yeah.
S I We all do this, and I love the people who are stuck in this so much because if we're honest with ourselves, we can all relate to varying degrees, and it feels awful, but it
Mhm.
feels like our only choice
Yeah.
because it's too scary. Like, that feeling of stuckness, it's too scary to look at ourselves and how we're contributing to the problem, and so instead, we blame our kids' stupid friends that
Right.
introduce them to drugs,
Yeah.
or the legal system, or the hospital, or our spouse, or clergy, or whatever. We blame, and we need
Yes.
everybody to change in the world before we can find peace and happiness and a sense of safety.
Right.
Yeah, that day is never going to come.
No.
Nobody wants to play along.
No.
They would like us to play along. Odd that we don't wanna play along with how they want us.
Exactly. It's like
But
it's a two-way street until it's my street, and then it's a one-way street.
exactly, exactly. And so it's actually so much easier, and we have complete control over the situation, which gives comfort in looking at our wounds, our hurts, the things we haven't wanted to confront, and how our stubbornness and willfulness and inability to see ourselves is actually the biggest problem.
Mhm. And it can be the biggest gift if you are
Yeah.
willing to do that work, right? And
Yeah, the pendulum's gonna swing equally in both directions.
yes, I often think I was talking to some friends, and I'm 8 years past sort of the worst of our crisis with my son. And I'm to the point now where I really think he took one for the team. Like his experience led to my growth and my enlightenment,
Yeah.
all of these amazing things for me. And it's almost like I owe him thanks to have done what he did and to go through what he did because he paid such a high price for it. And I got so much out of it. Do you see that? Like, it's such a
I
weird
completely
thing.
agree, and I applaud that. So that's humility. That is giving up your ego. Not every parent has that experience because they are unwilling to question themselves.
Right.
But that's exactly what started my journey as well when my 2 kids were like, "Yeah, Jesus isn't for me." And I was like, "But I need you to be saved and do all the things, please and thank
Yes.
you." And they were like, "Yeah, no, thank you." Really made me because I tried to control them and it didn't work. They didn't wanna play along.
Right.
And so it made me reflect back on myself and what I could do about it and what how I was contributing and how I could shift to find peace because ultimately we all control our own reality. And that I don't mean that in be so we should all be happy all the time. We
Yeah.
should not be happy all the time,
Yeah.
but we do control our how we experience the world.
Yes. I am so curious about that process for you and sort of what you had to do to take in their, no thank you,
Yeah,
to,
and
like,
that's a lot
to
politer than they told me.
yes, I am sure it is. That is the G-rated Disney version of, I'm
Yeah.
sure, what actually went down, but, like, what did you have to do with that information to continue to have a relationship with them? Like, what was your role in all of that, and how did you grapple with this
Yeah.
really significant
I
departure?
I had to do a lot of work, and so for video, this is like my little journal, and I would write down so many things in here,
Mm.
and this was pain, heartache, this was spiritual guidance that I would receive. Um, it was kind of years worth of growing up spiritually, honestly,
Mm.
and not expecting my kids to tell me that I was a good mom through their
Mm.
choices. And so I distilled all of these lessons into my upcoming book, Mom Got Jesus Wrong, Hallelujah. And there are 6 steps, but self-help and nonfiction can sometimes be boring, if I'm honest. So it reads as a young woman's journal. So it's like 10 or 11 months worth of her having this spiritual awakening. And so I've sewn all of my lessons into her fictional narrative. And I've also sewn a lot of my experiences and my friends and family members' experiences that were harmful
Mm.
and also healing
Mm.
so that it it reads fast and it's really informative. But essentially, in a nutshell, really just looking at yourself and recognizing, you're the common denominator in every relationship in your life. So
This is true.
it's repeating, like, and how can I change that?
This is true.
Yeah.
I love that, and I love the name of the book, like, how tell me a little bit about how you came to that as the title of the book.
Yeah. So I actually wrote the book several years ago, in 2023, and I was working on art for it and other pieces. So that's why it's publishing now in 2025. But for the first few years, as I was writing in my notebook, before I even ever sat down to write, the name of it was actually JC the OG. So Jesus Christ, the original gangster.
Right, right.
But it didn't pass the title test, which is fine. But I wrote the book originally. This might sound really morbid. A lot of times I picture what my kids will think after I'm dead
Mm.
and the legacy that I could potentially leave for them.
Mm.
And I just thought, if I die, maybe my kids will search for something higher. Maybe they'll be ready at that point.
Mm.
And so I'm going to leave them this book that outlines the steps that they can actually find Christ if they're interested.
Right.
And then, of course, as I wrote, I thought, oh, a lot of people could really benefit from this. So maybe it's not just for my kids, but the original title, JC the OG, was because I feel like myself and future generations, we don't like the Jesus that's been sold to us.
Mm.
He's white, he's a rule enforcer. He's not very nice.
Yeah.
But my kids, and I think most kids growing up are looking for a leader that doesn't like racism and sexism and all the isms,
Yes.
and that is wanting to flip the table and make, instead of systems of oppression, systems of love and
Mm.
systems of inclusiveness and generosity and goodness. And a lot of the youth get it wrong in that they think that this needs to be fueled with a lot of rage and anger and frustration. Well, we can look at a microsystem of this and realize that it just isn't sustaining. Like hating your body so much that you lose weight. Well, guess what? You're going to gain it back. That's like a simple one-person way that this plays out. We can't
Mm,
hate our body so much that it becomes beautiful. It's not sustainable.
yeah.
And so when we have a whole society and culture wanting to make change out of hatred and resentment and frustration, and I get why those are there because I feel them too. I see the systems of oppression, I see the systems of hate, and I have to really do a lot of work to not fight fire with fire. But Christ flipped the tables with love. And so he is the leader that we all want, just not the one maybe that was sold to us. And so the title, Mom Got Jesus Wrong, Hallelujah, is not sarcastic. It's very much the Jesus that I was taught is wrong. And that's the best news ever.
So is that what you would hope your boys say at some point, like, down the road, like, "Oh," like, have this
Yeah.
realization? But
Yeah.
but you're not but you're not promoting the wrong Jesus. So is it so I'm just a little confused.
Yeah. And I think that everybody has to form their own relationship with Christ to really know him and what's accurate.
Right.
And so with my kids, that's the thing that I want for them. I want them to seek Christ, whether that's in nature or in prayer or in music or in relationship, to seek the divine and understand the love and the compassion and the grace and the wisdom there. And I feel very fortunate that for the most part, I grew up pretty spiritually well fed.
Mm.
But I see in my experience and in other people's experiences how the Christ they were sold is modesty police and is, women are second class and we need to default to a white dude to tell us exactly how to be. Like, maybe not. Maybe mom was wrong.
Okay, I get it now. Got it.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah. It's oh my gosh, there's just so much in there. I think it's really and I would love to learn a little bit more about your relationship, like the more practical side of the relationship with your boys who have kind of said no thank you. Because this comes up a lot with our kids who go through some very, sometimes it's a spiritual awakening when they find recovery and
Sure.
they may find either like they totally disassociate with what they were brought up in or they find something new. But then there's the practical side of you're getting together at Thanksgiving and you're all sitting around the table and it comes time to what you would normally do is like say grace. Like I'm just kind of
Sure.
curious about how does this play out in the real world when you have such differing um viewpoints, practices, mindsets, like how does that work?
Yeah. So my oldest is my daughter, and then I have a son. And sometimes they leave the room for prayer, sometimes they stay in the room. I want them to be comfortable.
Oh,
And so I'm not going to be a stickler, and this is just me. People can do their thing, but I believe that God wants me to have a good relationship with my kids. Weird. And I want them to be respectful of my beliefs, which means I need to be respectful of theirs
so beautiful.
and hold space for that. And so like, we pray every day as a family, and we'll say, "Hey, it's prayer time, whomever wants to come, or will you join us?" or whatever, and sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't, and that's totally cool. That's for them to figure out. I can't meddle with their relationship with God. I've tried, it doesn't work well.
Yeah.
Uh, and it makes sense why some kids find the divine or do not find the divine based off of their spiritual experiences and substances. So, I ha the community I live in is very religious, and sometimes I think people turn to substances because they don't feel like they measure up in that
Mm,
religious, setting, um, or for other reasons.
Yeah.
But I think that it's really important with your child and the substances or choices that they're making to be honest about, is the spirituality that I've taught them or not taught them, is that affecting how this is playing out for good or ill?
Yeah.
Because a lot of us humans down here, when we know we can't win, we give up.
Mm.
And so if the bar is so high, like parents, for example, I coach parents of teens, right?
Yeah.
That's my deal. So parents who nitpick their kids and really hold back on, complimenting or praising, they have kids that either cave in anxiety and constantly just chase their parent around trying to please them, or they're like, "Screw you."
Yeah.
And they go the exact opposite way because they can't win, so they might as well do whatever they want.
Yes.
And so to be able to see, well, am I selling my kids a Jesus that hates them unless they're perfect? Well, no wonder they don't wanna go to church. It feels terrible.
Right. That's a hard sell.
Yeah, like, "Ooh, yes, let me see how bad I suck for several hours a week. That sounds amazing." Like, "No,
Yeah.
thank you."
Sign me up.
Yeah,
Would
yeah.
love to do that. Yeah.
And I'm not saying that God condones just any old behavior, but we have to have the love there and the grace and the understanding and the relationship. Just like you and I don't, if a stranger walked up to us and corrected us on a few things, we'd be like, "Who are you?" Like, get. But if somebody, our best friend who we trust is like, "Listen, I've seen these things and I know you're going to be happier if you work through these things." We'd be like, "Thank you for telling me."
Yeah.
It's the same thing with our kids. It is nurturing their relationship with the divine as much as they're interested, right? Because you can't make your kids do anything. Um, but being really aware of how their spiritual experience, good or ill, is impacting that substance use.
Yeah. I think the pressure part of this, whether that's, pressure from the parents, from the church, from whatever expectations have been placed on them, is I just hear that, I'm not a therapist, but I hear this over and over and over for 6 years. I've heard this from therapists, from psychiatrists, from psychologists. It's those expectations, which are often extremely unrealistic and come from some other who knows where they came from.
Oh, I'll
The
tell you.
kid
But
they can
finish your sentence, then I'll tell you.
but those are, kids look at that and they're like, "Okay, cool, mom, dad, that works for you. Doesn't really work for me because I am my own human. I am not you. I am not the person who was 4 generations before you who said that we always do it this way." Like, and especially, and I don't know, I would love to hear your thoughts. If it's this generation, like the kids who are maybe like 10 to, you know, or maybe not 10, but let's say 20 to 30-ish, that they're not buying in to the
No, they're
crap
not.
that we're trying to sell them, right? Like
Yeah.
this, and I feel like that's different. Is that different? Like, what do you see in that?
I think every generation kind of evolves and asks the last generation, "Well, why?" "Well, why?" Right? Like, you and I are Gen X, and, like, the Berlin Wall came down in our time,
Yeah.
and gay people could join the military, and, like, there were movements made, but we just discount them because they just were happening, and we weren't recognizing the impact. But I think every generation pushes back and questions, and I think that this is really good for evolution and evolving, and going off the expectations, these unrealistic expectations that every that you hear a lot in your
Yes.
practice.
Yes.
Um, this is the cocktail. This is the unhealed
Mm.
wounds and the ego, because essentially, like, let's say your parent expects you, like, I'm coaching a gal right now, and she really wants her son to have a very specific college experience.
So
She
common.
wants him to join a certain fraternity because then he'll have friends, and she wants
Right.
him to go to a certain school, and she wants him to do all these things. Really high expect and very specific expectations. And it is because if he does that, then she will feel like he is safe.
Right. And don't you think it also checks a box on her ego and her, like,
Absolutely. Then I'll know
I
I
did
did a
it?
good job.
Mhm.
Yeah, my kid will be safe. I did a good job. I can finally relax. Things are going to be okay. And really, this just it brings raising kids, especially kids who don't play along with our expectations. They are, like you said, with your son, the most helpful thing that you could have in your life because they will bring all of your wounds and ego to the surface
Oh, yes, they
for
do.
you to deal with or continue putting on them. And we
Yes.
get to choose in any
Yes.
given conversation and situation. Am I going to say, "You're right. I did a really bad job at that"? Or are we gonna be like, "No, if you would just listen," it the choice is ours.
The choices are.
And so those unrealistic expectations, I have so much compassion for those people because they are carrying around all of this trauma and heartache that they haven't dealt with and set down yet. And
Um,
that's really hard. That's so heavy and it feels so awful.
it's a
And so to
lot.
be able to heal those wounds so that they can create safety within themselves instead of expecting other people to give that to them.
Mm, yes. Hold on. There was a
Mm,
question there are so many things. Oh, I know what I wanted to ask you was, had any of this been percolating in your brain, in your heart, in your soul prior to your kids kind of departing your religion? Or was this, oh, like a slap in the face and then you started figuring all this out? The latter. The latter.
things are going good. Look how amazing it's
Right?
all perfect. And then, yeah, like a sucker punch.
Okay. That had to have been difficult. And how did you start to work through that
Well, I cried
yourself
a lot.
personally? Yeah.
Cried a
Journal,
lot. I
cry.
blamed
Journal,
myself.
cry.
Yeah, I beat myself up. I looked back at all the things I hadn't done well or hadn't done at all or the things I did badly. I blamed myself. I which is really common because our brains want it to be all within our control. So if it's my fault, then I can fix it.
Mhm.
But if my kid is choosing it, that's harder for
Yeah.
me to control.
Yes. Good perspective.
And so it really was just a process again of just humbling myself enough to see myself clearly and then letting go of those expectations. It's kind of like, you know, how little kids or rides that we've been on will have steering wheels and we think that we're white knuckling to it. And then we realize we were never steering. We just were never steering, but we're white knuckled to it. But when we go left, it doesn't go left, like, somebody else is actually driving what we're on. When I slowly unfurled my white knuckles from the steering wheel of false sense of control, I could finally relax enough to be like, "Oh, it's actually okay,
Yeah.
and I can actually love my kid, and we can have a fun time together, and I don't have to walk around hurt all the time,
Yeah. Or trying to fix them or
or
convince
try to
them
fix it."
differently.
And the weirdest thing happened, my kids all of a sudden liked being around me more.
Hmm.
Weird.
It's weird when you weren't
Weird,
getting
but I
like,
wasn't, like, strangling out of them, like, "Be what I need you to be." They probably liked
Yes.
me. It's
What
so weird.
about so true. What about, like, it seems like you've gotten to a good place with this within, within yourself. What about extended family or other people in the community, other people in the church who are looking at you and going, "Well, Heather, why are you not fixing this? Well, why are you letting them do that?"
Yeah. No, my sister-in-law is in a similar boat, and somebody in her congregation just said, "Well, you just need to set him down and tell him your expectations." And she thought, "Oh, wow, I've never thought of that, good sir. Thank you for fixing my problem." Like, whatever. Um I tend to I don't know how this is gonna come off. I tend to only hang out with people that wanna emotionally evolve. And so I'm happy to have conversations, but people who are judgy, like, that's cool. It
Yeah.
it doesn't carry weight with me. They can
Yeah.
have their opinions, and I'm old enough and I'm a big enough girl that I can be like, "That's cool, you can totally judge me." You again, agency.
Mhm.
We make ourselves crazy when we don't want people to judge us because either we fake it or we get really mad and passive aggressive and weird.
Yeah.
The third option is let them. Just let them. Just be like, "Yeah, you're obviously not my people." And when your life goes sideways and you need support, like, I got you.
Yeah.
I'm happy to embrace you and show you the ropes of how to let your kid be your kid and love them all the same. And if that day never comes for you, well, then you don't get to, gain the skills that I've gained, and that's fine. And just let those people be those people. And if they're family members, that's kind of a bummer because I really love family and I love, that they're right there and they're supposed to be your people. They don't have to be your people.
Right. I know. It is tricky, but I think that's a great I just wanted to ask that because it's something that we deal with, whether it's, this topic of religion and faith or with us with kids who are using substances, we get a lot of well-intentioned advice, which usually sounds like, well, if you would just discipline them more, or if you would just take away their
Had
phone.
that. Yeah.
Oh, that is
It's
amazing.
people if we can pause and look at the psychology of why they do that, it makes sense. They're sad for us, they're uncomfortable. They wanna tell us how to fix it so that everybody can be happy,
Yeah,
because we don't like seeing people unhappy and uncomfortable.
yeah,
The better option is to sit in the discomfort with them and witness and love,
yeah. Well,
right?
you're
Like, I see
modeling.
you. I don't understand what you're going through, maybe I do, but I see you and I'm here for you. I'm gonna, bring you dinner tonight.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
that's a
it
much
goes
better
back to
option.
yeah, and it goes back to modeling because if your kids
Mhm.
see you responding with love in that way to somebody
Yeah.
who's a hater, let's just call them that,
Yeah.
then that says, "Oh, that's what Jesus looks like. That's what God looks like.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It
Yep.
isn't hate. It isn't disconnection. It isn't, all of those things. So I think it serves 2 purposes, one for modeling what, you hope to put into the world, and also just loving on that person where they are in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely, and when that judgment and, "Well, you should just discipline," but when that's coming at us, we don't have to entertain it, and,
Yeah.
like, depending on where you wanna draw the boundary, you can cut them off and be like, "Thanks, but no thanks," or you can listen politely and move on, like, it's up to you, but just understanding why they're doing that, they're uncomfortable with the discomfort, and allowing for them to have that experience, which is what they're not doing for you. So you're giving them the grace, and maybe eventually they'll pick up on that, maybe they won't. It's up to them.
Yeah. Well, if you had to give one thought, one word of wisdom to a parent who's going through this right now, whose kids are making different decisions and saying, "No, thank you, G-rated," what would be a thought for them?
A lot of grace and just smattering of love for you, for your kid, and just bring it down, catch your breath. There's no rush. Nothing has gone wrong. It's just not what you expected. Nothing has gone wrong. This is all just a learning process, even if it's not what we wanted. And just, I am worthy of love. My child is worthy of love. Everyone in the story is worthy of love, even if it's their drug dealer. Worthy of love. It doesn't mean and again, that's not permissive. I'm not
Right.
saying that we should invite them for Thanksgiving dinner. You
Right.
could, if you wanted, if you felt like
I
that was
did
the
that
best
once.
thing.
I did that
That's
once.
awesome. That's
Yeah.
awesome. But
Didn't go well.
just that we can learn. Good. That's another podcast episode
That's a
right there.
whole 'nother podcast
Brush
episode
your
right there.
teeth, things made.
I
Um, did you know? Did you know it was
I
the
did
windshield?
know, I did know.
Okay. See, you have a charitable heart. So I think just loving yourself enough to not blame yourself, to not blame your kid, and that's where grace comes in. And then just if you can't get there, get somebody to help you get there.
Yes,
Pick up
yes.
a book, maybe my book, grab a counselor or coach, get the resources that you need to be able to find that inner peace. Because what's within us, we radiate out.
Yes. When is the book out? Because I know we're gonna have folks wanting to get it. Is it out
Okay,
now? When
so
is it gonna
it
be out?
drops October 28th,
Okay.
but anytime before November 1st, you're gonna get pre-order bonuses,
Oh,
which are fantastic. So the book club guide, I think, is my most popular desired freebie.
okay.
Because this is definitely a book you want for your book club. It's got a ton of juicy stuff to discuss. We go deep.
'Kay.
And then you're gonna get a fun soundtrack that's a little more lighthearted, on
Nice.
Spotify and iTunes. And then the Facebook group and a few other little surprise items. I think there's like 5 or 6 fun freebies on there. The Facebook group is awesome because you can get on there and say, "Hey, this is how the Sunday school discussion went totally sideways today." Or whatever,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
So it's a safe space to share your spiritual mishaps and thought.
Which is so
So,
needed because it's just like we don't talk about that stuff, you know?
no, we just go home and vent and get upset,
Yeah.
and then it damages our relationship with God, and that's not good.
Oh. Okay, so that was before November 1st, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll get a link in the show notes, so if you wanna get all of the goodies for Mom Got Jesus Wrong, Hallelujah, we will have that link in the show notes, and you can get in those, and the book comes out October 28th, so thank you so much for hopping on with me. This is such a rich conversation and so, so needed.
Thank you. You're amazing, and I love the work that you're doing.
Likewise, thank you so much.